There comes a time when I won't belong on these streets and these crowds.
Hi, this is Dina with Pretty Productive. Welcome back to my channel. Before we get started today, we are going to be talking about sinking funds. It's probably the part of my budget that I get the most questions on. And I know that when you first start budgeting, sinking funds can seem kind of overwhelming when you're really trying to get out of debt and you're working towards a goal like that. So I just want to take a step back because I have a lot of new subscribers, and I want to, first of all, thank you all for joining me along this journey. To give you a little bit of background on why I started this channel, about a year and a half ago was I was working to get out of debt. I was using kind of a, I call it Dave Ramsey-ish method of the debt snowball. I was using cash envelopes, which I still use to this day. And I was using my YouTube channel for two things. One was to keep myself accountable, and also to help those of you that were kind of just starting on the process to maybe give some tips and techniques on different ways to kind of work your debt. So fast forward to about a year and a half later, my only current debt that I have is my house, which is my mortgage. I am semi-retired and I live in Phoenix, Arizona. So that is kind of my, why on my channel. It was definitely a very strong why when I started. I continue my channel to still keep myself accountable. I'm an emotional spender, so I can completely go off the rails. But also I enjoy this community. I enjoy, if anything that I say or do in one of my videos helps you, then great. It's worth the time and effort to film. So today what we're going to talk about is sinking funds. So when I very first started my debt-free journey, I only had really 3 sinking funds. And one, my emergency fund, really wasn't a sinking fund, because the difference of a savings account and a sinking fund is a sinking fund, in my opinion, is money I am going to spend. I'm not going to spend it today. I may need to wait a couple of months till I get the amount of money that I'm looking for, but I am planning to spend it, which makes my spending heart very happy. I am a spender by nature. I am definitely not a saver. I had to teach myself how to save and how to enjoy savings, and really I give all the credit to having sinking funds. The second one that I had was gifting, and at that point I had Christmas and birthdays, everything kind of rolled into one. And the third was vacation. So when my husband and I started this debt-free journey, we were very intense except for 2 things. We still celebrated Christmas and birthdays with our family plus our extended family. And we still took a vacation every year. So the vacation looked differently. We definitely, maybe drove to the coast and stayed with family, or we went in on a beach house with my sisters and their husband. So it was never an extravagant vacation. It was a vacation that was affordable. We may go to Disneyland, but we're going to bring our own food, and we're going to stay at a less expensive hotel, things like that. So it was always about compromise or working within our budget. But those were the 2 categories that we did not want to give up as we were working through our debt snowball. So in this day and age of where I am now in my financial journey is I have a lot of sinking funds. So I went ahead and pulled the sheet from the end of February, because that's how I reconcile my sinking funds. And so the 2 questions I get the most is, how do you decide what sinking fund you're going to even create? And then how do you decide what you're going to fund? So 2 really good questions, because it was confusing to me when I would first watch a ton of budgeting videos as I was starting out on my budgeting journey, as well as my YouTube channel. It seemed weird to me that when I had debt, that I should be saving for something in the future. I felt like other than vacation and gifts, everything else should go towards the debt. I was being charged an interest rate on the debt. Like, why put money in an envelope that's going to sit there and not make any money, and I'm paying more money over here. And I still have that feeling, even though I don't think that's a common feeling within the community. I see a lot of people still working through their debt snowball that are saving for future. And it really kind of makes sense now that I look back on it, because if you are getting out of debt and you stop using your credit cards and you know that your car tags are going to be due in a couple months, or you know that your car is going to need some work, it makes sense to start putting money towards that, so that when that event happens, you're not pulling out a credit card because you don't have the cash in your budget right then and there to pay for that. So that's kind of how I started my sinking funds. Once I kind of had it, you know, really a rhythm with my debt, we were paying it off, you know, we were both kind of doing little side hustles to bring in additional money, and that additional money was then freed up to then start to talk about sinking funds. So the first thing I did when I started to create sinking funds is I looked at what I knew I spent money on. And this was a deep dive into my budget. And that's what I do every year, is I look at the categories that I constantly go over, and then I ask myself, why am I going over? Is it because I'm not planning well? Is it because I'm pulling money out of that category that really doesn't belong to that category, which is normally what happened? Or is it something that was unexpected? You know, was it a medical bill that I hadn't, you know, anticipated? Was it a trip that I hadn't anticipated? So I really just took a hard look, and I started to see a pattern in the things that I was pulling money out that shouldn't have belonged to that category. So I started to write them down. I started making a list, and I hadn't yet decided that it was going to be a sinking fund or it wasn't going to be a sinking fund. I just started a list in my budget book that said, okay, I'm pulling out money for my daughter's dogs. I have them usually on the weekend. I was buying them toys or food, or I was taking them to go get their nails clipped. Well, I didn't have a fund for that. So then I decided to start to look at the pattern of what I was spending and start a fund for that. Same with glasses. I knew I was going to get glasses every March. I usually go to the optometrist. My prescription sometimes changes, sometimes doesn't. But I can plan on, if I'm going to get glasses, I'm probably going to get them in the month of March. So I looked at how much I normally spend, and then I started to say, how much do I need to put aside every month, so that in the month of March, I decided on $400. That was about what I was spending by the time I had my exam. And then I bought the glasses, which usually is just the lens part. I was keeping my own frames. So as I went through, I started to see where, you know, the ebbs and flows in my budget were like, you know, we all know taxes are in the month of April, but what I wasn't accounting for was the tax prep to have my accountant do my taxes. So I was always like, oh yeah, I got to pay that now, and that's close to $400. So that's how I determined which sinking funds I was going to have. And then I just look at the due date. So if, for example, taxes, I know I'm going to pay that in the month of April. And I started this back in, I think, August. So I just took how many months I had, divided the amount I needed, and that's how much I funded every single month, so that I can make sure by the time I funded it by March. I always like to have it the month before, so I'm not scrambling at the end to have that funded. So I kind of want to just take you through some of my sinking funds, just if it gives you an idea, or if you're not even at that point yet, maybe for something that you might want to start small. So I'm going to bring you in a little bit closer, just so you can see. And I'm going to just look, you know, kind of go through here, but I'm going to go through my binders because I know I need to take money out of at least one of my binder, because I have been saving for St. Patrick's Day. And it's tomorrow. So I'm going to take that money out, put it in my wallet, so that I'm not grabbing money out of another category when I go tomorrow. I have the money that it was intended for that. So my binders are kind of a combination. So when you look at the pink binder, we'll do this one first. This one is what I call occasions. So it is birthdays, Christmas, holidays, anything like that. And in this particular binder, I'm going to bring you back out a little bit, just a little bit. This particular binder is the laminated cash envelopes, and these are from my shop, Pretty Productive. But for an example, I had Valentine's Day, my anniversary. So here's my St. Patrick's Day one. I have $100 in there. So I have 250s. So I'm going to just put this to the side, and now this one is empty. So I'm going to take my tracker, because I do put trackers in all of my envelopes, and I'm going to just say 3-17 St. Patrick's Day. I took the whole $100 out, so now my balance is 0. So what this tells me is I saved for it. I decided that $100 was what I needed. We go to a local Irish restaurant. They have live bands all day. You're there for a couple of hours, so you're gonna eat a little bit. You might have a drink. Always want to tip the band. So $100 is really what I felt comfortable with. I may have money left over, may not. So, but I'm comfortable spending this $100 because that's what I planned for. So then I'm just going to put this back in here, and then I'll start funding it next year. Easter is $100. That's kind of what I decided. Family barbecue is any Memorial Day, Labor Day, 4th of July, where we get together as a family. We all have smokers. We'll smoke meat. You all know how expensive meat is. I think I have $300 in here now. Halloween, Thanksgiving, and then Christmas I keep as one fund until I get close to Christmas. Then I break it out. So I have food for the day of, decorations, activities, so anything Christmas related, going to see lights, anything like that, gifts, which is all gifts combined, and then I start with my birthday envelope. So I have one for myself, one for my husband, my one daughter, and then my daughter and son-in-law. So I know when it's their birthday time that we're going to probably have a meal. I'm going to buy them gifts. For my daughters, we usually either go get a manicure or a pedicure, so I have that money in here. I also want to treat the other daughter whose birthday it is not, so we can all go together. So I over fund this one to account for all of that. Otherwise, I'm taking the food out of my eating out, and I'm taking the manicure, pedicure out of my personal care, when those really aren't the categories that I'm spending. So that's, again, my philosophy. I don't ever want to have to feel like, oh, I don't have the money to do what I like to do when we're celebrating a birthday. I have my nieces and nephews, which are their kids. Family, which is my parents as well as my sisters. Adventures is one that I may not keep. I have $100 in here. We have yet to go on like a road trip. Like, my plan was for us just to be able to drive up north on the weekend, maybe go to thrifting or something like that, but we haven't done it. It's been in here for 6 months, so I'll reevaluate all of my sinking funds probably about mid-year, about July, and this may be one that I decide I don't want to go forward with, or if I use it by then I go forward with it. Liam and Milo are my daughter's dogs, and Disneyland is one that I could definitely use my vacation funds for, but I wanted to have separate money set aside for Disneyland, so I wasn't taking away from like a family vacation. I was saving money, so if I decide to go with my sisters, I have the money here and I'm not taking out of our vacation fund. So, and that one is now fully funded. So as far as my other binders, these are alphabetized. So these were all created because they're categories that I was spending money in and not really planning for. And so when I wasn't planning for them, I was using my credit card, and then I was either doing rollover money to pay them, or I was dipping into my cushion that I keep in my account, or I was, you know, paying myself back if I took it from another category. And that's one thing I've tried really hard to do with my sinking funds is if it's saved for that, I keep it for that. If, like adventures, I realize that, hey, I don't really need this category, then I go ahead and take that money and fund another category that I think I will use more. So beauty and skincare is all skincare, cosmetics, fragrance, anything like that that I would buy. Car maintenance is an online account, but I do keep some cash in here just in case I need like a battery or something like that. Date night is a new category. I only give myself $50 a week for eating out, and that could be gone the first time we went out with the prices of food. So I did want money separately, that if we decided to go out kind of spur of the moment, I had money in here for that. Dental is something I'm saving for some dental work to get done. Electricity is an overage account. So I live in Arizona. My electric bill goes super high in the summertime, and it's really affordable right now this time of year in the spring. So I budget $250 every month, and then what's different, you know, the difference, like for this month it was $140. It goes into this electricity sinking fund. So when July, August, September hits, anything over the 250, and it will be over 250, I take from here to kind of cushion how much I'm having to take out of my monthly budget for that, because my bill is so much higher. So if you lived in a part of the country that was cold, you might have that for your heating bill, you know, your natural gas or propane or whatever you use to heat your house. Your bills are definitely going to go higher when it's cold, and then they'll be less in the summertime. So for me in Arizona, it's the opposite of that. My Etsy shop is an online account. Fitness, I have not been working out. I've had a plantar fasciitis, so I'm ready to use this. This could be clothing, it could be to go to a class, anything like that. My glasses is fully funded. I'm getting ready to do that this month. Health and medical, we got hit with a lot of medical bills at once, and I was super stressed about it because medical spending account, I could exhaust it easily by just, you know, not really keeping a sight of what my copay was. So my deductible was $1,000. So my goal has been to keep $1,000 in my medical spending account. So this month, or really last month alone, I spent $400 for an MRI. My husband spent $300 for an MRI, and those were our copays. So I had $1,000 in there. So right away, $700 got wiped out. So I'm starting to build that back up again. So I like to have whatever our deductible is that we still owe set aside for that. So, you know, for some reason I have this one in cash, but my doctor no longer takes cash, and I'm finding that a lot of medical offices don't want cash. So I have an online account for this. I use my credit card, and I just pay my card from that online account. My HOA is $75 a month. I'm getting ready to pay this in the month of April. If I can pay the $220 out of my checks and it's not tight, then I just use that and let this roll over. My goal is to have a whole year of my HOA in the envelope, so maybe for 2023 I pay it all up front, and just so I don't have to worry about it. Household is a newer one because I've been rolling household over, and it kind of gets confusing when I add or subtract to it. So I'm probably going to put whatever I roll over for the month of March in here, and then I'll just start it fresh every single time I do a new budget. House Reno is an online account. My Invisalign is really braces. I already got them. This has already been put into the bank. I've already paid that in full. And then the balance of what I had versus what I owed came out of our medical spending account. So, and then I do like to do the lottery, so I do keep this here. When my dad was alive, he loved to go to the casino. I always kept money in this envelope. So if he said, hey, can we go to the casino today? I wasn't telling him no. I always had some money in here to take him. And then for this binder, miscellaneous is money that rolls over from my miscellaneous category. Pest control is like my HOA. It's quarterly, so I'm going for 2023 to have it all in the envelope up front. Planning is, I know I'm going to buy planners. I don't know why it took me years to decide that I needed a sinking fund for it, so that I wasn't wondering what happened when I spent $200 on planners for the new year. So the money is here. There's $300 in here now. That should be everything I need for 2023. I probably will buy my planners in October, November. So now the money's here when I'm ready to go. Reward, I have not started my wellness journey yet, but I very much like a child need to be rewarded for staying on plan. So instead of just saying, hey, I'll take my money from my spending and just treat myself, I wanted to have money there that I only got to if I did what I set my goal to be. So that's what reward is. Rollover, I decided to put it into a savings challenge instead of in here. Savings, I am saving 10% of what I've earned for this year into a online account, just because I want that additional cushion that's super liquid in case something happens. Saving challenge is in a separate box. Self-care is, you know, massages, facials, anything that I want to do that I really don't have a budget for, that is part of my self-care. So this is a newer one. I think I have $400 in here, which I won't be funding this for a while because I haven't taken the time to book appointments yet. Subscriptions is really Amazon. Target is a new category. I love, if you talk about self-care, to me, walking up and down the aisles in Target, going to the Target dollar spot, you know, picking up little things from my house or little things that are clothes, it makes me happy. But I didn't really have a category for it. So I was taking a little bit from household, a little bit from clothing, a little bit from spending, and it was, you know, stressing me out, saying, well, I don't have that much in spending. I really can't buy this right now. So what I'm going to be doing is taking this $100 and buying a Target gift card and putting it on my Target Red card, which comes out of my checking account. And I'll use that instead of letting it come out of my checking account and paying myself back. And then tax prep, I have already moved over to taxes because this is the tax money that I had in my savings account. And I've taken, instead of taking it out, I moved the money from my savings into my checking. So when I pay for my taxes, that's where it's coming out. So all I did was switch $420 from my tax prep envelope into my taxes one. And then I took the $420 those in my savings account and moved it into my checking account to pay that. Technology is anything, new cell phone, iPad, anything like that that I would need. Thrifting is something I enjoy doing with my sisters. Again, I never had money, you know, set aside for that. So a lot of times I would go and like, I really don't have, you know, extra money to spend there, where now I give myself permission to spend. And then vacation is an online account, and my vitamins, again, I was taking out of my grocery money, and the months that I was having to replenish my vitamins, which always seems to happen at one time, meant that I couldn't buy groceries because I was using this in a category that really wasn't meant to be. So for me, sinking funds is permission to spend. I'm not planning to save any of these other than my savings challenge or savings account, which really aren't sinking funds because they are savings accounts. But anything that is on this list, I am planning to spend at some time, whether it's today or it's, you know, a year from now, or if, you know, something happens. I like the fact that that money is set aside, and I am not stressed about it. I'm not struggling to find the money. I'm not pulling from other categories. It's there. And the other thing that I think is really important with sinking funds is to constantly reevaluate. So, you know, if I find myself always wanting to do something, and I think thrifting and Target were the two categories that I can think of that are very recent, I kept thinking, God, it'd be fun just to go to Target with $100 and not have to account for it, if that makes sense. And just kind of take my time, wander the aisles, put things in my cart, you know, and just be able to spend the money almost like you were giving yourself a gift. Like, you know, someone had given you a $100 gift card. You don't feel guilty spending that because that's what it's for, you know. So that's why I wanted to start to put money away for that. Same thing with thrifting, you know. I kind of go through moods where I like to go out with my sisters and go to estate sales and like that. And other times I feel overwhelmed with the amount of stuff in my house and I don't want to go. But I do want the money there, so if I am looking for something and somebody wants to go, I can just grab that envelope and go. So for me personally, it gives me permission to spend, and that makes me super happy because I love to spend money. So if you have any questions, please let me know. The other thing I wanted to say about sinking funds is this particularly if you are new to budgeting or new to sinking funds, I feel like can be super overwhelming. So take 3 or 4 categories to start and put that money aside. And then, you know, build more up. Like if you know you have tuition coming up, or your kids are going to have picture day and you need $100 in September, or you're going to have books to buy, things like that. Those are good ones to go ahead and set up, because you know you're going to spend the money anyways. You kind of have a due date and maybe an idea of how much you're going to spend. Some of these other ones are kind of luxury. You know, is Disney necessary? No, but I love the fact that if, you know, I'm available to go, I have the money there, I don't have to hesitate and think, oh, I really shouldn't spend the money, because that money isn't going to be spent unless I go to Disneyland. And then just one final note. There's a budgeter who I follow who is struggling right now because she needs car repairs, and she was asking the budgeting community, should I, you know, take money out of my sinking funds, even if it's not for that particular, you know, if it's for car maintenance? What about my savings challenges? What about my tax refund? You know, what is the best way to handle this? And my advice to her, because she asked, is you take everything. So if I needed money right now, and I had all of this money just sitting there in cash, I would use it versus go back into debt. So if I think in her situation, she had $5,000 she needed in repairs for her car. She still owed on her car, so she didn't want another car payment, but she needed to get back and forth to work. So, you know, is it worth it for her to spend the $5,000 on fixing her car? Or is it better just to go into debt, have a car payment, and then leave the money? But to me personally, you know, this is why you have sinking funds. They may not come out in the category that you had intended them to be, but this is a safety net, like your emergency fund, that can help you when things like that are going to happen, because they're going to happen. You're going to have something come up that you need the cash, and this keeps you from going back into debt. So that was my advice to her. You know, everybody feels a little bit differently about their savings challenges or their sinking funds, but to me, in my mind, this keeps me from using my credit card, because I already have the money. So if I'm going to do something or need to do something, the money is set aside for that. So, okay, I think that's everything for this video. Please let me know if you have any questions at all. I would also love to hear what your favorite sinking fund is, and what is the sinking fund that you wish you had thought about earlier as you're trying to find out the money for that particular sinking fund. I hope you are doing well. Take care, and I'll see you in my next video.
There comes a time when I won't belong on these streets, in these crowds, in this room.